Good morning and welcome to UK Property Talk. This is Charles Kelly. I'm the author of the book Borrow and Grow Rich, which shows how the wealthy have used good debt to buy assets and become rich. You can't get rich just by saving alone. I also do a podcast on money tips, which I do earlier on in the week. And this week I was talking about the interest rate rises. But before I get on to that, I want to go into the Section 21 Abolition and Renters Reform Bill that I talked about a few weeks ago. Now, I got an enormous response to that. I had more comments on that post than any other post I've ever done, because it just was crazy. I got landlords saying they wanted to pull out, they didn't think it was fair, to people calling us scum landlords, scum greedy landlords, profiteering off people, and property should be for the people, not for landlords. And a great polarization of comments that came in, like hundreds of them. And I talked about the bill. In particular, we talked about the abolition of no-fault evictions, otherwise known as the Section 21 notice. This is where a landlord can serve a notice called a Section 21 notice. You can do it yourself, or you can get a lawyer to do it, to say to the tenant, look, I'm giving you a couple of months notice, I'd like you to leave. And then this could be at the end of the tenancy. Typically, it comes at the end of a tenancy where a tenant says, well, I want a Section 21, I don't want to move out. I've had a few of those, not many. Most people, decent, ordinary people, they get to the end of the tenancy agreement and they move out. Just like a hotel, you stay for a week and you leave. You don't say, I want a Section 21 notice to leave. I'm not leaving. I've got my rights, my human rights. I'm staying here. You're a scum hotelier. No, you just go. And this could be at the end of a 6 months, or 1 year. Some tenants have been in properties for years. And then the landlord says, well, look, I'd like to get possession of my property. I want to sell it. I want to move back into it. I want to redecorate it. And, whatever. It's their business, for God's sake. It's their property. It's up to them to do what they like with that property. Now, I know that the tenant might think, well, this is my home. I've been here for 5 years. This is my home. You shouldn't be able to throw me out. I should be able to stay here for the rest of my life and pass it on to my children and pay the same rent. No, it doesn't really work like that, does it? Let's face it. We're not the council. We're not the government giving you a property for life. Even the government now rarely give people properties for life, So let's get real here. The landlord wants possession, and in the past, well, they can now serve a Section 21 notice, which is normally quite a friendly thing. Look, I'm giving you this Section 21 notice to leave. It's just a legal requirement in case the tenant decides, well, I've changed my mind, I'm not leaving, and then you have to start the process all over again. But there is another spanner in the works thrown in by local authorities, in that they will advise people, if the landlord asks them to leave, they say, don't leave, ask for a Section 21 notice, and then when that notice comes through, go to court and get evicted. They string it out, and then they say, if you do that, then we'll be able to help you with housing. They'll put you in temporary accommodation. They're not going to give you a council flat. They're probably going to put you in a hotel, temporary accommodation, some horrible place that you won't like, and then you'll have to either sit that out and wait to get housed, or you find somewhere else. But I know it's a problem. I know it's not a perfect situation, but the local authorities definitely don't help, because they are literally saying to people, don't move out, because if you move out voluntarily, they call it voluntarily, if you move out on the Section 21, they won't help them. And that rule should be changed. But if they don't move out voluntarily, or when the Section 21 notice, then the landlord has to go to court, which can take, at the moment, maybe up to 6 months to get through all of the backlog, because, of course, evictions were banned during that period. We had a couple of years where nobody could do anything. And so now there's a big backlog of evictions coming through. So look, under pressure from the media, from charities, from the do-gooders, if you like, the government has decided that they want to abolish this process of Section 21. Now, there is another process called the Section 8, where you have a false eviction, where you you say, look, they're doing this, they're not paying their rent, they're in arrears, then that's a Section 21, but you've got to prove that. So that's a bit more difficult. So landlords have typically used a Section 21, even where the tenant might be in arrears. So they want to abolish this. And it's almost like, I think a lot of people feel that, just getting a bit political here, a lot of people feel that the Conservative government is not really a Conservative government. They're more of a liberal Democrat, social Democrat kind of government, because they're bringing in policies that would never be brought in by a Conservative government. This is more like a new Labour type of policy. But this is what, and I covered this a few weeks ago, and as I said, I got lots of views on this, but now they've published the white paper. This means it's going to go through Parliament, get voted on, and will probably become law unless there's some amendments made by MPs or by the House of Lords or by the opposition or whatever. You can influence this in a way. You can lobby your MP. You can lobby organisations like the NRLA, it's the National Landlords Association. They're doing a lot of good work lobbying. I'm a member of the National Landlords Association. If you're a landlord, definitely you should join that. It's only about £100 a year, and try and help them in their case, because they are talking to the government. So this is what they've said. Section 21, Abolition Renters Reform Bill, white paper revealed. And I'm just going to give you the bullet points anyway. You can read the white paper, it's published. You can Google it and read the whole thing for yourself. But the bare bones of it, the bullet points would be that they want to, and this goes a bit further than just that abolishing one process. They want to convert assured shorthold tenancies, what we call the AST, into periodic tenancies that can be ended by the tenant with 2 months' notice and by landlords with a legitimate reason. So the tenant can anytime, now they want a periodic tenancy, which could be 2 years. The tenancy can anytime say, right, I'm leaving, 2 months' notice. I don't care what happens to you, I'm going. But the landlord has to give a legitimate reason to end the tenancy. It's nonsense. Now, we don't know what these legitimate reasons are. And I hope that they're going to specify this, because we don't want a situation where one local authority says this and another local authority says that, by the way of they interpret the law. A lot of laws in this country are left open to interpretation. So that's the first bit. Then abolish the Section 21 and introduce a new possession grounds for landlords. Okay, we'll have to see what that says, but then they're not going to allow you to just serve a Section 21 notice. We'll have to see what these new grounds are. I'm assuming they're going to be things like, I want to sell the property, I want to move back into the property. But what if you don't want to sell the property? What if you just want to get that tenant out because that tenant is causing you a lot of issues? Now, they may not be in arrears, but they may be causing issues with the neighbours, for instance. Now, these are very difficult things to prove. In fact, I've got a difficult neighbour, a tenant next door to me, created a lot of noise. They've got very rowdy people, and the council don't want to know. They said, well, you can put a report in, but they don't really care. The letting agency and the landlord says there's nothing they can do until the end of the tenancy. So it's a difficult, obviously a difficult situation. They've got a 2-year tenancy and they didn't have a break clause after 1 year. So these sorts of things can happen. So possession for grounds, legitimate reasons. I don't know if that's always going to work. It depends what they're going to say. But there are times when the landlord just wants to move on. They're fed up with buy-to-let, for instance. They just want to move back into the property. They might want to do something else with it. But we'll have to see how that pans out. Then they want to extend the decent home standards to the sector. Next thing is they want to create a new Private Renters Ombudsman to settle disputes informally. Ombudsmen are an organisation. It's going to be another Quango, another person earning 100,000 a year. So I'm the ombudsman, and anyway, we'll have to see how that works. I find ombudsman in the past, I've never got much use out of ombudsmans, but I'm a member of an ombudsman as an estate agent to settle disputes with estate agencies. It's the property ombudsman. So we'll have to see how that will work. Perhaps they want to avoid always going to court, and so they have an ombudsman to settle things, like a mediator, if you like. Then they want to introduce a new property portal to support landlords are and provide information on rogues. I mean, I assume we're talking about rogue tenant. Now, I don't know how that's going to work with data protection, but it's a good thing that rogue tenants who go from one landlord to the next, smashing up and trashing properties, not paying their rents, should be exposed. And I hope that that will work in some way. No doubt the human rights lawyers will be saying it's not fair to the tenants, and organizations like Shelter say, these tenants have been blighted by rogue landlords, scum landlords, you know. Then they want to abolish rent review clauses, which are these clauses say your rent will go up by X amount per year to increase rents annually. I don't know why they want to do that. I mean, it's a way of reviewing rents automatically. I don't personally do that, but some landlords do. Then they want to outlaw blanket bans on renting to families with children or tenants on benefits. That's an interesting one. If you're a landlord that deals with private tenants only, you have a right to say, I want to have a tenant that works and pays their rent themselves rather than relying on the government to pay the rent, because they are totally different types of tenants. I've dealt with both. I'm dealing with both right now. And, you know, the tenants who get their rent paid by universal credit are different. They have a different attitude towards property. You may remember I posted something recently saying that my property not been completely wrecked, but it'd been left in a terrible state by the tenant. And he brought in somebody that wasn't even supposed to be living there. He was on benefits. The rent was paid, fair enough. He was quite a nice guy, actually. But when he left, the place was a complete mess. And nobody's going to help there. I'm on my own. I've also had tenants with mental issues. I've had tenants where the rent has not been paid on time. Their claim has fallen down, or they're working a few hours a week so that the universal credit stopped paying. And I get no actual notices from universal credit whatsoever. I don't get a statement. I don't get an email saying we've paid this amount, nothing. They just pay an amount into the account with bare details, like maybe the name and that sort of thing. That's it. No, not the month, not the period they're paying it for. It's, they treat us like dirt. In fact, you can't even call them. There's no number to call them. You just go through this loop and you get thrown out. So I have to go through a council representative who then can call universal credit, like getting through to the royal family or something, So then they'll tell me what's going on, and they'll say, well, they didn't pay this claim this month because so-and-so and so-and-so, But it's a terrible situation, this universal credit, and it really makes it difficult for landlords. So why shouldn't a landlord be able to say, I don't want people on benefits. I don't want the hassle of it. I don't want the hassle of dealing with universal credit and the way they treat us like dirt. I don't want that. But no, they're going to say they're going to abolish this. They're going to outlaw blanket bans. Now, I would imagine that a landlord can still say to a person, well, are you working? What's your situation? I want references, and then make their own decision. But I imagine a blanket ban would be saying something like, in an advert, you cannot, no benefits, no kids, no dogs, that sort of thing. Which brings me on to the next thing. They're going to incentivize landlords to accept tenants with pets. Now, I don't know what that exactly means. Some of the newspapers this week have been saying you will not be able to ban people with pets. You're going to have to accept them. But I don't think that will work. I don't like pets in the house. I don't have pets in my own house. And this tenant I was talking about, when he left, his girlfriend that he shouldn't have been living there anyway. It was just a room. She was living in terrible in overcrowded situations, which I would have got blamed for. But she brought a cat in there, and the cat stunk the room out. They didn't clean it out properly. There was cat's mess all over the floor. They left the litter tray in there. I think that the cat used the litter tray, it just went where it liked. And I had to clean all that out. And it was like a gut-wrenching smell. I had to wear 2 masks to, it was like you had to spray it to go in the room. It was so bad. I don't know how they live like that. And I don't want people with cats and dogs in the place. I don't want the smell of it. I don't want to have to deal with the clear up of the mess afterwards. And if there's a dog there, I don't want to deal with the mess in the garden and all that sort of thing. So why should I take people with pets? it's not my problem, to be honest. If they want to have a pet and a dog, find a landlord that likes dogs and cats. I don't, I don't have cats and dogs in my own house. I don't dislike them, but I don't want them in my house. And then the last thing is they're going to reform and speed up the court processes. Well, yeah, right. We're going to really see that, aren't we? I mean, the courts are chock-a-block with cases, and I don't know how they're going to do that. So a lot of these things just sound like pie in the sky to me. Now, the National Landlords Association, or the NRLA, they merged with another two organisations. They have campaigned for positive change, with the white paper announcing that landlords will be allowed to ask for pet insurance as a condition of the tenants keeping animals, something currently prohibited. Landlords will be obliged to consider a tenant's request to have a pet, but can decline with a good reason. What's a good reason? In this case, they didn't ask me if they wanted to bring in a pet, they just brought it in. I said the government's also committed to reforming the court system and making local authorities more accountable when it comes to housing standards, as well as introducing new mandatory grounds for landlords or their families wishing to move back into a property or sell it. Yeah, that's fine. All right, but if a landlord's got 5 or 6 properties that they live on for their, or say 2 or 3, they live in one, they've got 2 or 3 buy-to-lets that they rely on for their pension, they might not want to move back into that property. They're going to have to lie and say, I want to move back into it. What happens if they're found out? Most people don't want to go to court and lie in front of the court. You can't do it, So all I can say here is I've had a lot of feedback from landlords saying they're getting out, but I wouldn't get out just yet. Don't panic. Let's see how it works out. They do need us. They need the 2 million or so private landlords. The government has not built enough council houses since the 1970s. So they need us, believe me. If we pulled out of the market and put everyone on the streets, the government would be in chaos. They can't even deal with the amount of homelessness now, refugees coming in, thousands a week. So what are they going to do? They can't put everybody in 4-star hotels like they do with refugees. I'd also say that they've got to get the lenders on board here, because as many of you pointed out, if they're bringing in new types of tenancies with no Section 21 notice, how is a lender going to feel about this? A lender wants security that they can get vacant possession back. I imagine that there will be some form of clause that they can get vacant possession back if the mortgage has not been paid, which is the normal time that they would do that. But it might be difficult. And so they've got to bring in on board the many buy-to-let lenders and banks that lend in this sector. It's a multi-billion pound sector, so they've got to bring that in. Now, in Wales, they've brought in some of these reforms already. It's caused a lot of problems. But all I can say is, look, lobby your MP, talk to the NRLA, but don't panic. Let's see how it pans out. If it becomes unacceptable, if they go back to the dark old days of fixed tenancies and long-term tenancies where you could never evict anybody, then that will kill the sector, and the government will have to rethink and start building council houses again, because the landlords will just pull out. So let's see what happens. I'm confident about property because I always feel that property is a long-term investment. People will always need properties. There's a shortage of properties in the UK. They need to build hundreds of thousands a year more, and they just can't do it. And the population is growing, more immigration is still coming in, and more smaller units as divorces happen, and people are living longer, of course. So there's all good reasons why I'm sticking with properties. Now, the other thing the government are doing, they're trying to look at this sort of levelling up situation, aren't they? They're trying to make other parts of the country, including the north and parts of the southwest, more prosperous, just like London and the southeast. So one of the things they're looking at now is another bit of a gimmick, really, longer term, 30-year fixed mortgages to help borrowers buy property and get on the property ladder. So the government is seeking a banking think tank expert to lead a review, as Boris Johnson pledged last week, to start a new homeownership revolution, he calls it. And one of those things was to give people in housing associations the right to buy their property. Housing associations are a bit like local authorities, and they want to give those the right to buy. Up to now, they've not had the right to buy in the same way that they had this with councils. So they want to explore more ways to hand borrowers larger and longer mortgages in the hopes of encouraging more people to move. So presumably they're thinking that a longer term mortgage will be cheaper, and 30-year fixed rates, great. That's what they have in other countries. And debts worth more than 100% of the properties. The ways to blend in renting and owning a property. Now, there was a talk last week of governments being able to use the benefit payments towards buying a property. It kind of makes sense in a way, but how are you going to guarantee benefit payments when you can't even get, you don't even know month to month whether the Universal Credit are going to pay the benefits. So I don't know how that would make a lender feel, but what they're saying is they spend billions a year on benefits to landlords. Why not direct those benefits into a mortgage so that people could be buying their properties? Well, the answer to that maybe is bring back local authority mortgages. Local authorities used to lend money to mortgages, like the GLC, the Greater London Council, used to have mortgages that people could use to buy properties. Well, maybe the government could bring back their own mortgages, and that they then become the lender, helping people to buy the properties. That might be one thing worth considering. But I don't think Boris is tuning into this, so he probably won't hear this, nor will the housing minister. But yeah, 30-year mortgages fixed, great when rates are low, but nobody wants to fix a mortgage 30 years when rates are 16 and a quarter, which I have paid in the past. That would be a killer, wouldn't it? And then rates come down. So longer term, even lifetime mortgages, this is me now saying this, I think that a longer term mortgage is a good idea, and even a lifetime mortgage like they would have in Japan, that you could even pass on to your children when you die. So you can say, well, I'm giving you this property, it's got a mortgage on it, take it over. At the moment, you can't do that. No, the lenders want the mortgage paid off. So when somebody dies and property goes into probate, the lender wants that mortgage cleared, either by selling or paying it off before they'll make the transfer. It's crazy. Why can't they transfer the mortgages as they've done in America? Why can't you sell a property with a mortgage? It'd be far cheaper, far less administration, and better for everybody apart from the lenders. No, the lenders want to wipe that mortgage, let's start a new one, more fees, more interest, and all the rest of it. But the government should make that more flexible, and it would help, I think would help the whole market personally. But yeah, the difference between a 25-year and a 30-year mortgage is negligible. When I was a mortgage broker and an IFA, you'd say, well, you can have this over 20 years, 25 or 30 years. Yeah, the payments will be a little bit cheaper over 30 years than 25 years, but the interest payment you'd pay for that extra 5 years would be enormous, would be very considerable, and it would not be worth it. Yeah, the difference between a 15 and a 20-year or 20-year and a 25-year, that's quite a big difference. Higher repayments, but less interest payment because you're paying it for less time. But 25 to 30 years doesn't make a lot of difference. But interest only would make a difference if you said, look, I'll give you a lifetime mortgage, interest only, pay it off when you die, hand it on to your kids. Why not? Why not do that? That would help people enormously and enable them to buy properties and not have to rent, and give them 100% mortgage. Why not? And guarantee. We used to have 100% mortgages before. Lenders were not at risk because there was an insurance policy guaranteeing if they defaulted. So look, will these things work? I don't know. We'll have to see. My thoughts are that it hasn't been thought through, just like this no eviction ban has not been thought through, or putting benefits towards mortgages has not been really thought through. We'll just have to see how it works. But I think if you liberalize the whole thing, it would work. At the moment, you see an elderly person in a house that's got no mortgage. There are adverts on telly all the time from Saga, release equity from your home. What they mean is borrow money and take a mortgage out. That's releasing equity. And then they show people they've got a nice new kitchen. It's not a bad idea, but these rates are 5 and 6%, and they roll up, and then they're paid off when somebody dies. So it can be done, and it's not a bad idea, because it means if you pull out equity from your home that's got no mortgage, you can live more comfortably, and you can pass money on to your children and grandchildren tax-free, as long as you live 7 years, and without inheritance tax, I mean. So you can pull out that money, that's tax-free, you can give it to children to help them buy a property, and then the mortgage is paid off when you die or when you move out and sell the property. So why not offer that same kind of situation, for that same facility for younger people who want to buy a property and just want to buy a property to live in? This is nothing to do with buy to let, but this is just my view here. Okay, the other thing I want to look at now is UK interest rates were hiked for the 5th consecutive time. They're now the highest they are for 13 years, but they're only going up by 0.25% to 1.25%. But that shows you that rates have been the same for been less than 1% for 13 years, which is incredible, really. They've nearly been at zero at one point. In America, the Fed have raised rates by 0.75, and both governments are saying they're predicting 3% interest rates by next year. This is to fight inflation, of course. Inflation is at a 40-year high, 9% at the moment, predicted to be 11% by October. But we all know that inflation is already in double digits. It's more like 15, 20% if they calculated it correctly. We know what prices are, and we know how much they've gone up, but I won't go on about that now. But we should remember also that most properties in this country are owned outright. They have no mortgage. And this is where the big market comes in for equity release, of course. But 75% of mortgages are already on fixed rates, so no one's going to have that much trouble there. And 40% of fixed rates are fixed for more than 5 years. But what difference would a 0.25% make on your mortgage? Well, you can work it out in your head, really. On a 100,000 mortgage, it's £250 a year. On a £200,000 mortgage, £200,000 mortgage, a 0.25% is around £500 extra per year, or £40 a month. That's not the end of the world, but we've had a few rises already, don't forget. And if it keeps going up, it could start affecting people. Buy-to-let landlords, I don't think it's going to have too much effect on them. Most of those would be on fixed rates, I assume. And their loan to value, their equity in the property is usually higher than a first-time buyer who's bought on a 90% mortgage. But it comes as finances are being squeezed. A lot of people are suffering. We're definitely entering into a recession, and all the signs are there. So things are going to be tough. Will it affect properties? Yes, it could affect properties. A lot of people are predicting that property prices could slow down, level off, fall. I don't want to say that, but they could fall. They are falling in some parts of the country, but overall they're still going up a little bit because some people have got money. They want these big 3 and 4 bedroom houses. So the whole market is not dying. But if we go into a long recession, who knows? Crypto is collapsing this week, or has collapsed by up to 70%. Bitcoin, the gold standard, the Rolls Royce of crypto, has gone down to just over $20,000 from a high only like last November, I think. Last November, it was over 100,000. No, it wasn't. It was 70,000. Sorry, I'm getting it mixed up here. It was a high of 70,000 last November, and it's gone down to 20,630 as of Friday this week. Ethereum has also gone down. That had a high of 5,000 in November, gone down to just over 1,000 this week. So cryptocurrencies, the reason I mention it, you might think it was nothing to do with property, but a lot of people put money into cryptocurrencies hoping that they would go up and some other sucker would buy them at the higher price. But it could be a sign of sort of a dot-com type of boom and bust, like we had at the start of this century. The dot-com boom went a bit crazy. Every company was worth billions all of a sudden. And then people started to realize, some kid in the crowd said, the emperor hasn't got any clothes on. And people, like, the emperor's clothing, look it up. And then everyone realized, oh my God, these companies are rubbish. They're worth nothing, and everything collapsed. Even Amazon collapsed by, I think, 85% at that time. So could it be that Bitcoin and the NASDAQ are signs that we're in another dot-com boom and bust? Because the NASDAQ has lost nearly 40% since its peak last year. S&P lost 5% this week, the worst trading since the beginning of that in 2020. It fell 5%. The NASDAQ dropped 4% the other day in one day. It's gone up a little bit, but when they say it's gone up by X amount, so it's in the blue now, it only means it's gone up from what it was the other day. From 4% down, it's gone up by 0.5%, so it looks better now, doesn't it? But actually it's still in the red based on previous prices. So we're seeing that the stock market it's definitely in correction territory. It could crash, could bring down the markets. A lot of money is going to be lost. Property usually follows stock market crashes, not always, but it usually does. So we'll have to see what happens there. But it's never been a better time to really learn how to control your money. And if you want some personal mentoring, I do offer personal mentoring. I'll put a link up there. This can be on managing your money or just learning how to build a portfolio in property safely and without necessarily using your own money. There are lots of people out there who will enter into joint ventures with you. You can do things like rent to rent. All these things can be learned and used and put into practice to help you make money in property safely and securely, and also to be able to quit your job, to quit the rat race. I think property is still a good investment despite all of these reforms and, from the business prevention unit. Don't worry about that. Let's just get on with it, because property is not just about buy to let anyway. There's lots of ways of making money in property that doesn't involve being a buy to let landlord. There are dozens of strategies. Now, if you want to go on if you want to learn a bit more, you can still do my mention. I'll put up a link to that. I'll offer a free 30-minute session on Zoom. But there is a course run by a friend of mine next week, next Wednesday, 7 p.m. I'll put a link up to that. It's Property Investing Secrets, where you can learn from experts how to get into property, sometimes using none of your own money. But that might be worth tuning in. It's a webinar. You've got nothing to lose. You can look at it from your own home. It'll be about an hour and a half to 2 hours of real information and some strategies that you can use. Obviously, then they'll offer you a paid course if you like, if you want to go into things deeper, but you don't have to take that. But have a look at that. So I hope this has been interesting for you. My name is Charles Kelly. If you want to know more about how to borrow and grow rich, check out my book on Amazon. It's how the rich have made money from borrowing money, good debt, not bad debt, borrowing money to buy fancy things and cars and widescreen TVs, but using good debt to make a fortune. And that's how they've kept and made their fortune. Believe me, the wealthy people use other people's money. They use good debt. And you can learn this as well and apply that to property. So check out my free mentoring service, my free wealth accelerator discovery call that I call it. And also check out the Property Investing Secrets course next week. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, wherever you are. And thanks for tuning in. I will speak to you again soon. Bye for now.